Ryan Bland received a DUI drug charge in 2004 when he was just 20 years old. A subsequent aggravated DUI drug leveled down just 2 weeks later when he wasn't impaired sent him to prison and ended up suspending his license to drive. Due to his inability to make it through a suspension, that singular DUI has now caused his license to be revoked or suspended for the last 15 years. Bland was recently pulled over for failure to use his turn signal when he pulled into this giant gas station to get gas. His girlfriend, who normally drives him due to his suspension, was in Tucson, looking after their prematurely born child at the time. Bland cooperated with the officer, but he was taken to jail for driving on a revoked license, but was later released due to overcrowding in the booking intake area. Bland spoke to the Gila Herald about the difficulties of navigating a suspended license in a rural community while still providing for his family.
My first DUI, I was impaired. I was a knucklehead back then. I was practically a child, and I was guilty of that one. I got a DUI for marijuana, and 2 weeks later, I was on my way to work, and I'd already gave it up, and I decided to try to straighten up my life. I had court coming up, and I got pulled over by the same officer that got me on the first one, and he arrested me that day for driving unsuspended. I went to county jail for the next 3 or 4 months, and I didn't make it back home for another year and a half, only to have my license revoked for the next 5 years. And since then, it's been a struggle. I've lost every vehicle I've ever owned, and just making it to work has been a nightmare, without getting a ticket in a year, because every time it just bumps it a year back, and it's just like I never seem to make it that far. And it's not that I enjoy breaking the law, because I don't, but just trying to take care of the family became real difficult, and my family's the one that expected from it probably more than anybody. It just seems like it's never really gotten any closer, and I try not to drive, and I make it close sometimes, but I just never really seem to get there, and it's a struggle. There's no public transportation where I live, and so there's not been a good solution offered to me as far as how am I going to get to work, take care of the family, and get home without having to drive, especially doing what I do. I've been a contractor for at least the last 10 years of this, and I got a truck full of tools, and trying to get from job to job, it's just not been easy, and so it's hard to find anybody who can give you a ride for one day, let alone all week or all year.
Attorney David Griffith gave a rundown of how a DUI can affect a driver's status and the differences between a regular DUI, extreme, aggravated, and DUI drug.
People usually get pulled over and they get investigated for a DUI. A lot of times the police officer is going to take some blood, and sometimes they will not get cited yet. They'll send that blood off to a lab, and they'll get the blood results back in a few months, and then they will issue a summons for the person to come into court and charge them with a DUI. And a lot of times people will go into court and plead guilty to a DUI, and they don't know what the consequences are going to be, or they think that the judge is going to have more discretion than the judge actually has. So if you get an extreme DUI and you're charged with that, the judge isn't going to have any discretion at all. It's not going to have a choice but to send you to jail for at least 30 consecutive days. And if you have a blood alcohol content over a 0.20, it's going to be 45 days as a minimum that the judge will be able to. Well, the judge is not going to have a choice. He's going to have to sentence you to that time in jail.
What about a DUI drug?
DUI drug has some severe consequences. The most severe consequence that people are usually worried about with a DUI drug is that it's a mandatory 1-year suspension of a driver's license. The other consequences are up to 6 months in jail. Usually they'll just get a day or two in jail. But that driver's license suspension is usually really important to people. Regular DUI, the normal driver's license suspension is 90 days, but after 30 days they can get a permit to go to work or to go to school or to the doctor's office.
Have you seen that out here in rural Arizona, the difficulties if someone does get their driver's license suspended, being able to go ahead and keep going to work and providing for their family, or having to drive on a suspended license? Or
Yeah, that's really an issue for a lot of my clients. That's why, especially with the DUI drug, we want to try to negotiate something different. So usually, the worst thing someone can do is just go in and plead guilty. Just after seeing the judge and getting charged, what they need to do is talk to a lawyer, so they can know all of their options. In this rural community, as I'm sure your audience knows, there's not much taxi service, or there's no public bus, so it's a serious issue.
in the end, however, Griffith said the MVD is the one holding all the cards.
Well, there's some counseling requirements. There's the ignition interlock requirements. So motor vehicle division is their own entity, and they make and change rules all the time. So you have to stay in contact with MVD. Depending on your situation, you got to get your counseling done, pay your fines, and then you can get your driver's license back. But it's a long, difficult road, and it's really tough on people in rural communities like ours. If it's suspended on points, or if it's suspended for additional reasons besides just one DUI, it's going to be up to motor vehicle division on what they want to do, how long your suspension is going to be. But yeah, all you can do is work with them and see what you need to do.
Bland recently opened his own faux stone manufacturing shop in Safford and supplies local builders. He says he just wants to finally get through a suspension and still be able to take care of his growing family.
I recently opened up a business where I can at least try to just make it to one spot and get home without having to go all around town, with a truckload of tools. So it's made it a little bit easier, but it's still a challenge. I still got to get there. And see, back then, I was, like I said, almost a child still. And I never would have thought that, what I was doing that day or that time was going to affect my life now in my mid-30s and trying to take care of a family. It's not been easy, and I just really wish that there was a better solution as far as, like, even a work permit would suit me just fine. In a town without no public transportation, it would make sense that a work permit be given to someone people in my situation. Well, I would like this issue to at least be brought to light as far as people in rural communities to have another option. If there's no public transportation, then how do they expect people to provide for their family? I'm the sole provider of my family, and if I don't do it, who will? So it kind of left me in a position where I have to do that, and I don't enjoy doing it. And I'm not just some guy out there that just doesn't have no respect for the law. That's not the case. I just try to take care of my family, and it's been real hard. So yeah, I would like to see maybe in the future just DMV offer a better solution.
Reporting from Safford for the Gila Herald, I'm John Johnson.